Okay.
Hi Internet. Today we're going to start off with a little bit of different something. We're not going to be showing off just videos and information about individual snake species. We're going to be talking about people who are afraid of reptiles and snakes in particular. So today we have
Carol.
Carol is today, and she is deathly afraid of reptiles. She even had a little bit of a bad experience the last time she was here when her daughter tried to show off some snakes. And we put her in a little bit of a situation that would make her feel super, super comfortable. And that's really what you want to have whenever you're introducing something that someone's a little bit of afraid of or doesn't quite understand it, is they need to feel comfortable and they need to go at their own pace. So, for a little bit of a background, Carol, you've always been afraid of snakes, right?
I've always been afraid of snakes. When I was younger, my mom was very afraid of snakes. And actually, to go further, my mom actually had an experience with a rattlesnake when she was a little girl. And that's, I think, where she got her fear. She was camping with her parents. She was sitting on a rock and it was right next to her and kind of freaked her out. So it conveyed to me that way. And then when we were camping, we ran across just probably a bull snake or something. And it freaked us all out and I was hysterical. So I've always had that fear of snakes, and when I see them now they scare me because they're unpredictable, and the way they move, the way they dart, you just don't know what to expect from them.
You get that? And I think that's a big part of it, is that people are animals that evolve to learn by mimicry. And so we are built around society and we learn from things above us. And so if we see parents or other people when we're really young and we see something that they are startled or upset by, we learn to imitate and mimic that behavior. And I think that keeps going down generations, as well as it may or may not have a bit of a religious component. A lot of different religions around the world convey snakes as, in association with the devil and the darks and bad magic and stuff like that. And I mean, it's really not true. They're great, wonderful creatures. They're a part of this world, and everything needs to be part of that world. But we're going to move a little away from that. We're going to start introducing how you would start to go about showing someone who's afraid of reptiles how to introduce them slowly. And so to start with that, so someone who's mostly afraid of snakes, maybe we're going to start with something that still has legs, so it's a little bit less intimidating. This is a red hypo bearded dragon. So they are a lizard species from Australia. Whoop. And he's still a little guy. We don't have any big adult bearded dragons right now, so he is actually still getting used to being handled and socialized. So, are you okay with getting on your hand?
As long as he doesn't bite him.
He's not going to bite you. He's gonna dart around a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're gonna
put
him on your hand like that.
This doesn't scare me as much. Whoop. Sorry.
He's gonna dart. You're okay. So we're gonna.
Come on, buddy.
Come on. You're okay. I know, I understand. It's scary.
Come on.
It's scary.
It's okay.
So there you go. So it's a reptile. It's not a puppy or a kitten.
Nope.
But it has legs. It has eyes. It can blink. You can kind of anthropomorphize and empathize more with a lizard than you can with a snake because it's a little bit more relatable,
right.
I think.
Right.
So how are you feeling right now?
Fine.
Perfectly fine?
He doesn't scare me at all.
Okay, that's
As long as I know they don't bite, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically anything with a mouth can bite. I'm sure your puppy's probably chewed on you a couple times already.
A few.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to put him away, and then we are now going to start with the big scary one, snakes. So as you can see, she's tensed up a little bit. She's a little worried. She doesn't really know what's going on. But we're going to start with some snakes that hopefully will make it a little bit easier. So we're going to start with a snake that is all white. It doesn't even look like a real snake. So this is a ball python. And don't worry, you don't need to hold it. You don't even need to touch it until you're ready.
Thank you.
So a ball python, they call them balls because they are more afraid of you than you are of him.
That.
So they call them balls because they ball up when they're scared, and they hide their head, so that way if you're going at them, they can't get to you. So I won't put them down, but as you can see, so here's a snake. And ball pythons are really cool because, so all the snakes that we have here in North America, for the most part, are colubrids. And basically what that means, it's just kind of like a general catch-all for any snake that's not a venomous viper or a lapid and not a boid, so a python or boa constrictor.
Okay.
And that means that for the most part, colubrids are more fast-moving, they're more active, they're not as heavy-bodied, and they move around a lot more. So, when you think of a rattlesnake, they're not moving, but they're scary, they're venomous, they have that rattle, it sounds really intimidating. And then other snakes, like bull snakes and gopher snakes and hognose snakes, They're not dangerous at all. They're not venomous whatsoever. But because they kind of look like that, which is something that they actually evolved to do, so in addition to blending in with their natural surroundings like rattlesnakes do, they look like rattlesnakes, so hopefully predators leave them alone. And they'll actually even do something where they'll wiggle their tails, like in leaf litter, so it kind of sounds like it's rattling like that too. But ball pythons, they don't move around a whole lot. They're called pet rocks.
Okay.
So as you can even see, he's not moving anywhere.
No.
And you touched him a couple times.
Yes.
And so now, so if you look, every once in a while, so he even has blue eyes. Like you don't see snakes with blue eyes a whole lot.
He's very pretty.
So he's actually a leucistic snake.
What does that mean?
And so leucism is a gene where it's not the same as albinism. Albinism means that particular proteins in the phenotype, which means what's displayed on the animal, are missing. And so because of that, all the pigment is lost, and including in how the eye is made too, and that's how you have those red eyes. With leucism, it's different. It's not a loss of proteins. It's something that changes the actual proteins of the pattern, which completely covers it. And that's how you get the blue eyes too. It changes kind of how like the signals and the traffic are moving for that. And so if the normal like brown kind of greenish eye, they turn them bright blue. So if you want, we'll move him out like that, and you can touch his tail. Don't worry, I have his head. He's not going to do anything. So when you said earlier, when you talked about how they're kind of unpredictable and how they kind of jerk around, that's them just kind of moving along how they move. They don't have arms or legs, and so that's kind of what they have to do. So I can promise you right now, none of the animals that we're going to see today are ever going to bite you. But if you do, like a lot of times, if you touch their tail or something, or their heads, they might kind of jerk away because they're like, okay, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because we're predators. This is a prey item for them. And I'm going to keep his head away from you. But if you want, here, I'll keep his head. If you want, you can hold it just like that. And I'll keep even my hand right here, so that way, even if he kind of starts to wiggle over that way. So you can see his tongue moving.
Yes.
So when he has those really long, protracted tongue flicks, that's not him being upset. That's him just kind of checking stuff out. So they don't really taste with their tongues. That's just what we kind of say it, so that way we can kind of get our heads around it. What it is that they actually collect particles which contain scent, and they bring it back in their mouths. And then there's a little organ on the roof of their mouths, and dogs and cats have it too, but definitely more with cats. It's called the Jacobson's organ. And what that does is when their tongue comes back in, it rubs across that organ, and that allows the snake to kind of interpret it, what's going on. Is there an animal that could be prey? Is there a predator? All sorts of different things. So you can see when his tongue's also going out, that also means it's a snake that is more at ease. It knows what it's doing. Yep, you're okay.
Sorry.
No, you're perfectly fine. So we'll leave him here. So even you can see now, as a python, they don't even move the same way like snakes that you'd see here in North America. I don't know if he's going to get moving. Now, we'll put him away, and we'll bring on another one who's maybe going to move around a little bit more, but still looks pretty cool. So we have another ball python here. She is a pastel highway.
She's a little more active.
She's a little bit more active, and she's going to move around a little bit. So you can see she's not cruising and moving around like that. They kind of more undulate. They more like kind of crawl on the ground. So they have wider belly scales, and they're shaped a little bit differently. You're okay, don't worry.
I'm sorry.
No, you're perfectly fine. That's why we're doing this. It's so the more you understand something, the less you are to be scared of it. And that's really this video and everything on the channel, that's what I'm trying to kind of convey. So you can see it doesn't look anything like even a ball python normally would. And that's what's really cool about ball pythons and why they make great pets for people who are a little bit afraid of snakes, but they want to get interested in it. They don't move around a lot. They're pretty inactive. And because they come in such a wide variety of colors, you can get one that doesn't even look like a real snake.
Do they like human interaction?
They can be tolerant of it. So, like I said it a little bit before, but so we tend to anthropomorphize anything that's not a person. And it's easier with like cats and dogs who can empathize, who are more self-aware, and they realize kind of what you're going for because they've been domesticated to the point where they can interact with you a little bit more. Snakes, we've domesticated them. I don't even know if you can really consider that any snake is domesticated but we've raised them in a way to make it so that way they're more tolerant of our behavior, but not so much that they're empathetic and they interact with us a little bit more. So, you have a dog that when you open up the front door and it comes out to greet you and stuff like that, Snake's never going to do
No.
that. Their brains don't even work that way.
Right.
But you have an animal that is more capable of putting up with you. Some other reptiles like iguanas and monitor lizards and stuff like that, they can. They do enjoy interaction. They can even come up and wanting attention. Our big red iguana even will lean over in for head scratches and stuff like that. Are you feel comfortable holding one? If you're not, it's okay.
I don't think I can.
No, that's perfectly fine. No, it's okay. So as you can see,
I just am afraid I'd drop it.
well, that's what the table's here for. So here, if you want to put your hands just flat on the table, and we will do this. I'll still keep this part of them on me,
Okay.
like that.
He's cool.
Yeah. We've named her Colorado.
She's very pretty.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, we're going to keep your head over there
Yes.
because she's still a little afraid.
And I know she can probably tell if I'm afraid, can she?
She can feel you tense up and
Right.
move, and so because that sudden movement, she's going to react to
Right.
that. So if you make a quick sudden movement while you're holding her, she's going to
She's
jerk
gonna-
too because that's, oh no, what's happening?
Yeah.
Something's going on. So we'll put my hand right here slowly, just like that.
Okay.
So here we have Indiana, who is a banana ball python. So for a reason why they call it bananas. You can see as they get
Yes.
older, they even get more speckles.
Yes.
So,
She's very pretty.
yep. So he's not doing
So
a very
soft.
good job. Yep. So is it slimy or
No,
wet at all?
not
Yep.
at all.
They're very dry, and actually a lot of humidity for most snakes isn't. Well, not humidity, but
Right.
sitting in cold water isn't a good thing.
It's not good for them.
Mm-hmm.
So how do they protect themselves?
So it varies from species to species. So the first thing that they are always going to want to do is try to run away.
Right.
If you're not there, they can't interact whatsoever with it. And so with any type of snake, that is going to be their first choice. So it doesn't matter if it's a king cobra, if it's a garter snake, if it's a ball python. The first thing that they want to do is get away from you.
Right.
Because you're bigger than them, you can
Right.
eat them. And so what they do after that, once again, depending on the snake, is what they're going to do after that. So with a ball python, their first instinct is to ball up.
Okay.
You know, their vital organs are more protected. They have a lot of coils. They're a little bit heavier bodied, and so they try to protect the thing that's important, their head.
Their head.
They ball up.
Right. And hide their head.
You gonna ball up here? I know. I'm gonna boop your head a little bit. I'm sorry. Nope. Okay. So like I said, he's trying to get away.
Yeah.
They're more comfortable with us because we handle them a lot. But that's what they try to do to protect themselves, you know. So when you have a rattlesnake, they're going to try to run away. But if you come across one and startle one, that's what the rattle is. That's them telling you, I'm here, leave me alone, don't mess with me. Biting is always a last resort.
Right.
Because
Right.
a lot of the time, their teeth aren't made to get rid of something. It's
Right.
meant to hold on to something.
Okay.
So a lot of times when a snake actually bites a big animal like a person, it's really traumatic for them. They lose teeth all the time, but it can rip out their teeth,
Wow.
which doesn't feel great.
No.
And so that's why they don't like to do it. So the only time that a person's ever going to get bitten by a pet snake is it's the person's fault. So either they didn't read the signs correctly, where the snake, you know, backs into a corner
Right.
and it says, leave me alone, and that's when you see that S posture, or they confuse you with food. So because, you know, we keep them in boxes and in glass tanks, and that's all of their interaction is either the cage opens up and hands coming in to mess with them,
Right.
or the cage is opening up and food's going in. And so sometimes you can get that confused with food. And that is not the animal's fault whatsoever. It's all our fault. All our fault. Okay. So this guy, he doesn't have a name yet, but he's another banana, and he's actually a genetic stripe. So you saw with the other one, they kind of had that like purple markings all across them. The genetic stripe, it's paled out a little bit as he's gotten older, but you can see it has this solid white marking in purple on the sides. And that's actually a recessive trait. So like albinism, you have to have both parents have to carry the gene, even if they're not expressing it, to have the offspring that does in fact show it. And so like that, the genetic stripe does that too. So snakes are really cool because they kind of act as nature's pest control. So like spiders, like cats, and things like that, they are predators, so they eat meat. And depending on where they are, they eat a lot. So for instance, you know, people who are very afraid of rattlesnakes and things like that, they will eat hundreds of rats a year.
Right.
So in places where they still do things like rattlesnake roundups, where they literally kill thousands of rattlesnakes, what they're actually doing is creating a hole in the ecosystem to allow rodent populations to explode. And so if we didn't have snakes, rodents grow out of control, and then they will start to eat crops. They affect us more, and mice and rats and other things carry a lot of diseases that they can carry. The only thing that you can really get from a snake is salmonella, and that is because of the things that they eat can be in their poop. And then if you rub your hands in their poop, or if they crawl through it, because they live in a little box, and if you don't keep it clean, they can walk through their poop. And then we put that in our mouths. That's how we can get salmonella. So as you can see, pythons are a constrictor species. And so for a long time, they thought that was what they do is they get you to stop breathing. They asphyxiate you. It's actually not true. What they found out what it does is it actually stops your blood flow, or the prey item's blood flow. And so that is a faster, less traumatic way to kill and eat their prey than it actually asphyxiate. It doesn't struggle as much because they're predators. They have to be kept in tip-top shape. If they're going to go for something that could hurt them in any way, they don't really want to mess with that. So like in the wild, when you see like big cats and stuff, they tell you to fight back. They don't want to mess with something that's going to hurt them. Right. Because if they get injured, then they can't continue to feed themselves. And so when you saw that he was kind of coiled around my arm a little bit, he's not constricting me.
He's not.
He's just holding on.
Okay.
Because right now, like people will say, I'm just bringing a tree branch right now. He knows I'm not a tree branch. They're not as intelligent as people are, but he knows that I'm a person, that I'm something moving him, interacting with him. I'm not a tree. But because I'm away from the ground, away from body, he's just holding on to me. And you can see those long, rapid tongue flips. Yep. That means he's at ease. He's not afraid. So there's no such thing as an angry, aggressive snake. You have a snake that doesn't want to be messed with. And that's when you're going to get the snakes that are biting and hissing. That's a snake that's saying, please don't eat me, go away. So a snake that is doing these long tongue flicks, that's a snake that knows that he's at ease, he's comfortable, he knows I'm not afraid. So here we have Pi.
All right.
So we named a lot of our boa constrictors after the Greek alphabet.
Oh,
so her younger brother is Rho. So like if you're in a college maternity, it would be, alpha, beta, sigma, gamma, all those things. And this is Pi.
Okay.
She is a boa constrictor, which when I say that, a lot of people go, oh no.
Yeah.
So that name has a little bit of a bad connotation because it's constrictor.
Right.
And so she's a little bit bigger than the ball pythons you've seen before. She's still pretty small because we slow grow our boas, so we're not going to get them really, really big because it's better for their health in the long run. So she's an albino, and she's hypomelanistic, which we don't have to really talk about, so we call that more particularly a sun glow. And you can see with those long tongue flicks, she is probably, like our camera woman said earlier, our most handleable snake. She has been in professional photo shoots. When people come over, this is the snake that once they are used to the small baby ball pythons and stuff like that, what we graduate them to. Now, the boa constrictor sounds scary because that's like been the connotative until recently when Burmese pythons took over the Everglades. Right. Which is another whole thing. That's the scary thing, yeah, like it squeezes you to death and things like that. Well, boa constrictors, they can get kind of big, but most of the time in captivity, the common boa constrictor imperator, which is one of the different varieties, they rarely get over 6 or 7 feet long, which sounds scary, but you have to remember, I'm almost 6 feet tall. Right. So it's not that bad. So these guys are semi-arboreal, so even when they get big, they do like to climb a little bit, and so because of that, they're going to move around more, and why these guys make good, like, kind of show animals is that they're used to climbing and being around. They're not exactly a smart snake, but they're probably a little bit more aware of what's going on than like a ball python is. Like when you want to talk about snake intelligence and things that are closely compared to like how we interact with things, like a king cobra or a reticulated python, those are the ones who are probably the most intelligent. They can even remember individuals. So, interesting. Like, so when you see like king cobras will individually recognize people who they interact with. And other reptiles too, like crocodiles and alligators and stuff like that, where they're used to people, but they can actually even remember, like they can remember schedules, they can remember times, when things are going to come by, and who does what. So if you have the keeper who interacts with them more but doesn't feed them a lot, they'll be more likely to be, oh, okay, I'm going to be messed with. This is what's happening, versus someone who I get fed, it's food time.
It's food time.
Things like that.
Interesting.
Like we've even had a couple snakes where they remember my mom.
Wow.
So when they come over and they say that snakes are deaf, they have ears. They're just kind of hidden back here, right there. Right. So it's kind of like that. So they can still hear that. They'll hear my mom, and they'll come up to the front of the cage and they'll start looking around for her. Huh. Because she loves snakes too. So, like when your mom was younger, she had that bad experience and was a little afraid of that. My mom, when I would go out and catch garter snakes, she would go, "That's really cool, but you should probably take it outside before Grandma gets back." So, right now, you can see your head's kind of pointing towards you, and we can move that a little bit. Yeah. But she's just checking stuff out.
She's checking stuff out, yeah.
You want to try to touch her? Yep, so she's perfectly at ease. How are you feeling?
I'm okay.
You're okay?
Yeah.
Do you want to try to hold her? It's okay if you don't.
I don't think so.
No, that's okay.
Thank you.
She's going to move around a little bit more.
Yeah, she is. I just don't want to get nervous with her.
It's okay. She is used to it.
Yeah.
So when we had someone come over here a while ago who was buying a snake for their kid and her husband, she was deathly afraid of snakes. Like she had to stand outside in the car and kind of go, "There's snakes in the house. There's snakes in the house. So you can do this, you can do this, you can do this." And then after she came in and saw like all the crazy colored ball pythons and all of everything else, she got more excited and was okay with holding things. Yeah. We put her on her, and she did kind of, so you can see me, I'm...
Yeah, jerking around, and she's not even bothered by it.
No. So when we talked about earlier how there may not necessarily be such a thing as a tame, domesticated snake, but you have snakes that are very used to and habituated to human interactions with them. Right. And Pi is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. Hey, Pi. Hey, Pi.
This is Iota. She's a Honduran milk snake. And so milk snakes you've heard about before probably. And Honduran, obviously, they're from Honduras. She is special because, number one, she's an albino. And number two, she's a tangerine, which is a type of hypomelanistic, which basically means a reduction in the melanin. So, for instance, I have more melanin in my skin than you do. It's kind of like that, where there is a specific gene that's tied to melanin, and you're going to go into the drawer. Stop opening drawers, guys. So, a lot of snakes in general don't have great eyesight. There are some snakes, like arboreal snakes, who eat birds, and like boom slangs in Africa, that they are more arboreal. They have very large eyes. They're more active hunting like that. A lot of snakes, they rely on their tongue with the Jacobson's organ, as well as like pit vipers and boas and ball pythons. They have those, like, do you remember looking, they had those kind of holes like right there? Those are their heat pits where they could kind of help with that. And then they can also feel vibration. And so they use a variety of those senses to help find their prey more than eyesight. When you have an albino, their eyesight is reduced even more so. That makes it a little bit more sensitive to light because they don't have the ocular membrane. Their eyes can't react to light as well as other things because there's no even pigment in that, which also helps with how they intake light. So because she is an albino, she's a colubrid, she doesn't have a whole lot of handling compared to someone like Pi. She is a little bit more jittery. But I like her because she's a giant candy cane.
She's pretty. She's very pretty.
So most milk snakes and corn snakes and things like that, they don't get more than about 4 feet long. Honduran milk snakes are one of the more larger species of colubrids. They can get over 6 feet long. And she's probably about 4.5 or 5 feet. So as you can see, she's not a constrictor snake. So she will grab a prey item and kind of wrap it up a little bit, but she doesn't sit there and do the full constriction. But she's still wrapping around my arm because she's just trying to feel comfortable. And even you can see, she's still doing that rapid tongue movement, just like everything else. She's more used to being handled than some of the other colubrids that I have, that once they're out and they're in my hands and they kind of calm down and get a feeling of what's going on, they're a little bit more handleable. But like her, a lot of times, like king snakes and milk snakes, they have a much higher prey drive. And so if you ever see like internet videos, or if you go to like a reptile store and you see that snake that's like cruising along the thing, and they open up the cage and they kind of pop out, that's, oh, you got food? Oh, you don't have food.
No.
But she's a little bit more, we'll just say calm.
Yeah, she is very calm.
You want to touch her? I got her head over here. So I'll have her head just like that.
So soft.
Mm-hmm.
So soft.
So you can even see that like the color and everything else goes down her belly as well.
Right. Yeah. And the inside is more shiny.
Mm-hmm. And so that's that iridescence that looks really cool with a lot of stuff. Okay. That's it, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay. So he's moving around a little bit more, but that's okay.
Okay.
You ready?
So when he's in my hand and he's going to move around, how do I
move her a little around. So
okay, buddy. It's all right.
If he's going to slither, let his head go down. Okay. And then you can take your next hand and put it underneath him. So you're not going to, yep, there you go. So you can see your hand was kind of close to his head, but he didn't freak out. See those long tongue flicks?
Yeah.
That means he's okay. He's not freaking out. He knows what's going on. So you can even see my hand's right here, and he's just fine. There you go. I know your head's going back. He's okay. He's just checking stuff out. That's all he's doing. Good job. You and him.
What's his name?
This, he doesn't have a name yet, but he is a blue-eyed leucistic, as well as there may or may not be some other morphs in there inside of him. Because when we talked about earlier, that leucism, it covers all of the pattern and the shading throughout there. And so the only way we'll know what he is, in fact, later, is when we breed him with a female and the eggs pop out when they hatch, we can see if there's other things in there. We do know that he is also a leopard, because it's going to be a little confusing when we talk about snake genetics. So a leopard is an incomplete dominant trait. And so what that means is if you have a leopard and a normal looking one, half the babies will be normal, half the babies will be leopard. If you put, there you go. Buddy. Yep, so there you go. So you see you kind of moved a little bit and you felt him tense up a bit.
Yeah, I did.
But his head moved, but he didn't jerk back at all.
No.
So.
It's okay, buddy.
So a good way to hold a snake, here I'm going to demonstrate, if you want to put him slightly on the, yep, there we go, is, so if you're not really comfortable with that yet, is like that, or like, come on, I know, or like this. So one hand's over here for his tail to kind of wrap around your hand, so he feels a little bit more secure, so he kind of has a bit of a better grip, and then like that. So how does it feel through your hand when he moves?
It just feels like it's very strong. Very strong.
They're basically
a lot of muscle. It feels like
they're basically all muscle.
Yeah, feels like a lot of muscle. Definitely. It's all right, buddy. It's all right, buddy. As you can tell, I'm nervous when his head comes back.
Yep, and that, that's okay. That's something that it takes a lot to get over, because that's the pointy end.
Yes.
So what did you think?
I feel more comfortable now.
Okay.
With them. I definitely wouldn't want to be in a room by myself with them.
Okay.
I feel comfortable because you are so versed in snakes, and it helped. And they're pretty, and I know that they're here for a reason. It's just their unexpected movements that bother me.
Yeah.
And bad experiences are like being cornered.
Exactly.
In a room where you can't get away.
Yep.
And yeah, that's not a good thing.
Yeah,
so,
that's exactly what happened the first
time. But overall, it's I held one.
Yep.
And touched one, and yeah.
Probably not something you ever thought you would ever going to be doing.
No, never.
No. Yep. Well, that's okay. And once kind of like we talked about, it's at your own pace, however you feel comfortable. And I think a lot of the thing is that there's just so many misconceptions about them that you don't understand them very well. And the more that you're around them and the more you know about them, the less unpredictable they seem, the less scary they are. You kind of know what they're doing. So, there's people out there that say, like, I speak snake, where what the snake's not necessarily thinking, but you can have a much better standing of what that snake is going to do.
Right.
And so I think you did a really great job, and you should be absolutely proud of yourself, considering that a year ago there's no way you would ever, like, walking into this building where snakes are, it's probably going to be that's a no-go.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay.
Well, good job.
Thanks.
Thanks again, Internet. I hope you guys liked the video. If you can, like and subscribe to our channel. If you have any questions or comments, or want to see anything like that, or any advice that you can give both on how this video was done, any other information, as well as any information that you guys have any questions about maybe how you talk about your parents or friends that also want to keep reptiles and how you would go about doing that. Hope this video helped, and I'll catch you next time.